I never thought my biggest family problem would turn into a case file I normally charge six figures to solve for someone else. I work in fraud detection. Banks, law firms, even corporate security teams call me when signatures look a little too confident, or documents feel like they were born in a discount printer. My job is basically spotting lies that try to look official. So when my trust account suddenly got frozen, I didn't panic. I just stared at the notification and felt something between disbelief and mild amusement. $520,000 doesn't just, accidentally, lock itself behind a power of attorney restriction. That takes effort, planning, and stupidity bold enough to think I wouldn't notice. The funny part is, while I was running my usual fraud simulation training for a financial institution that morning, my parents were probably celebrating somewhere, convinced they had just executed a genius-level retirement strategy. They've been obsessed lately with luxury RV life. Like freedom on wheels somehow requires draining their child's future first. Every phone call from them had slowly turned into subtle complaints about wasted money sitting in accounts doing nothing. What they didn't realize is that I teach people how to catch exactly that kind of thinking before it turns into a crime report. I found out the truth while preparing for what was supposed to be a rare quiet evening with someone who makes my life infinitely more interesting. My girlfriend, who is technically not from around here. She has this habit of observing human behavior like she's watching a documentary with popcorn in hand. When I showed her the account freeze notice, she tilted her head and said it looked like something a desperate amateur would do after watching too many courtroom dramas. She wasn't wrong. Within minutes of checking the paperwork trail, I already knew what had happened: forged authorization, sloppy identity matching, and signatures that looked like they were traced during an earthquake. It wasn't even clever. It was almost insulting. But instead of confronting them immediately, I leaned back and made a decision. If they wanted to play experts in financial deception, I would let them continue. After all, the best way to expose a lie is sometimes to let it grow until even the liar forgets where the truth ended. And judging by my parents' enthusiasm, this lie was just getting started. I didn't call them. I didn't even react in the way they expected. No angry messages, no urgent bank visits, nothing that would signal I already knew what they had done. Instead, I did something far more dangerous to people like them. I played along. When my parents brought up their new financial planning strategy over the phone, I listened like a supportive son. My father's voice had that weird mix of pride and secrecy, like a child showing off a drawing while hiding the crayon he stole. My mother kept repeating how smart people don't leave money sitting idle, which was funny considering she once thought Wi-Fi was powered by sunlight. They explained, in unnecessary detail, how certain documents had been signed and how everything was now temporarily secured for family benefit. Every sentence they spoke was another line of evidence added to a mental folder I didn't even need to organize. They were basically narrating their own confession, just without realizing it yet. Meanwhile, I was already documenting everything. Calls were recorded where legally allowed, timestamps were logged, and every contradiction they made was flagged automatically in my head. They kept changing small details too: who signed what, when it was signed, even why it was signed. Amateur fraudsters always forget consistency is harder to fake than signatures. My girlfriend found the entire situation deeply entertaining. She compared my parents to what she called low-budget interstellar scammers, which, coming from someone who has seen actual alien bureaucracies, was not a compliment. She started keeping a running tally of their lies, turning it into a game. "That's number 7, she said one evening while eating something that glowed faintly in the dark. "They're improving, in a very tragic way." The most interesting part was how confident my parents were becoming. Each conversation made them bolder. They started talking about RV models, travel routes, even how they would help me later when things stabilize. As if they hadn't just attempted to freeze my entire financial future. Then came the moment that sealed it. My mother casually mentioned they had already told a few relatives about their financial control arrangement, hoping for support. That was the mistake. In fraud work, nothing is more dangerous than spreading a lie beyond your control. Now there were witnesses, real ones. So I smiled, agreed with everything, and even asked helpful questions like I was genuinely curious. The more comfortable they felt, the more they revealed. And by the end of the week, they weren't just confident. They were preparing a celebration. The day of the family gathering arrived like a poorly planned experiment that nobody bothered to stop. My parents had spent the entire morning in a state of victorious excitement, convinced they were about to present their life upgrade to the entire family. My father even dressed up like he was about to sign a movie contract, and my mother kept rehearsing sentences about financial intelligence in front of the mirror. What they didn't know was that I had invited a few guests of my own. The house filled slowly, relatives first, then a few family friends, and quietly, the people who actually understood how money systems break when someone gets too confident. Bank compliance officers, an accountant I once trained, and a legal advisor who owed me a favor. Nobody looked like they were there for celebration. That alone should have been the first warning sign. But my parents were already too deep in their fantasy. They started the evening with speeches. My father proudly announced that they had taken responsible control of a major family asset for long-term planning. My mother added emotional weight, explaining how they had protected the future from being wasted. Each sentence sounded rehearsed, but worse than that, it sounded wrong. I didn't interrupt. I just let them continue. At first, the room was quiet, almost polite. Then came the questions. Simple ones. Innocent ones. The kind professionals use when they already know the answer and are just waiting for you to collapse under your own explanation. So who exactly witnessed the signing? My mother answered too quickly. Then my father corrected her. Then she corrected him back. That alone created the first crack. Then came document details. Dates didn't match. Names were spelled differently depending on who was speaking. The notary they mentioned didn't exist in the registry the accountant had already checked on his phone. My girlfriend sat comfortably at the side, watching like this was premium entertainment. She leaned over and whispered that humans really do love self-destructing with confidence. She was enjoying it way too much. The turning point wasn't loud. It was quiet. One of the relatives, trying to be helpful, mentioned that they had seen something about the paperwork days earlier. That tiny comment destroyed the timeline completely. Suddenly, my parents weren't telling one story. They were juggling 5 versions of it, and none of them matched. I finally spoke when it mattered. Not emotionally. Not angrily. Just calmly laying out a timeline of contradictions, recorded statements, and mismatched claims like pieces of a puzzle that refused to lie down correctly. The room shifted. You could feel it. That moment when people stop hearing a story and start seeing a problem. My parents still tried to talk, but their confidence had started cracking. Every sentence now sounded less like authority and more like damage control. And then came the question from the lead legal advisor, the one that didn't need raising voice or drama. Just one question that made everything go silent. And for the first time that night, my parents realized they weren't presenting a victory. They were sitting inside a confession they had built themselves. The silence after that question didn't explode, it collapsed. Like someone had pulled the support beam out from under a carefully balanced illusion. My father tried to laugh first, that nervous, "This is still fine" kind of laugh, but it came out wrong. My mother followed with a sentence that almost sounded rehearsed, then stopped halfway through because even she could hear it no longer made sense. The legal advisor didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply explained what everyone already understood: forged authority documents, inconsistent witness claims, and an unauthorized attempt to control a trust. The words weren't dramatic. That was the worst part. They were just factual. My parents sat there as if waiting for a different version of reality to load. There wasn't one. Within days, the power of attorney was officially invalidated. The freeze on my trust was lifted immediately, and every document they had proudly presented started falling apart under basic verification. No dramatic arrests, no movie-style chaos, just the quiet, humiliating unraveling of something that was never stable to begin with. What hurt their pride more than anything was how unnecessary it all was. They hadn't been outsmarted by someone stronger or richer. They had been undone by their own confidence in a plan that was built on shortcuts and assumptions. The RV brochures disappeared from the kitchen table first. Then the excited phone calls stopped. Eventually, even the family stopped treating it like gossip and started treating it like a cautionary tale told at gatherings when someone mentioned quick financial decisions. My girlfriend called it the most entertaining example of self-inflicted bureaucracy collapse she had ever witnessed. She said humans don't need enemies when they have imagination and impatience working together. I couldn't argue with her. Surprisingly, I didn't feel anger. Just a strange sense of closure. I've spent years teaching institutions how fraudsters think, and somehow my own family had volunteered themselves for the most predictable case study possible. The trust money stayed untouched for a while after that. Not because I didn't know what to do with it, but because something more valuable had come out of the entire mess: clarity about people, intentions, and boundaries that can't be rewritten with a signature. Over time, things settled. My parents had to face the consequences quietly, rebuilding trust the slow way, through honesty instead of paperwork tricks. The RV never left the driveway they had imagined it conquering. As for me, life moved forward in a different direction than before. Work continued, but now there was someone beside me who treated chaos like a shared joke rather than a burden. My girlfriend and I eventually planned our own journey, nothing fraudulent, nothing rushed, just something real. And in a strange way, the whole disaster ended up proving something simple. You don't win against truth with paperwork. You just delay the moment it walks into the room and sits down.